Alright, it's been a little while since I've actually posted a video. Just thought I'd do a quick little update here because yeah, this is kind of hot off the heels of Ludum 45. So this is sort of a post-mortem. I'm actually going to be doing a full write-up on my thoughts on how I did on Ludum 45 and everything. So yeah, this is just going to be a small video update. But essentially, I guess, why don't we just jump into it? So, here's the game that I made, or at least partial game. It's kind of broken. It is an unfinished game, so I did submit it as unfinished, sadly. And you can see I was actually trying to debug some stuff there with the animations. The animations are kind of broken. The character doesn't really turn around when I press left. There's also this weird issue of the character never going into the idle animation when it's supposed to, so the animation just kind of freezes. It's kind of annoying. Eating food here actually does work, so if I have this guinea pig character run into one of these food items, they could actually pick it up, but there's no way to climb ladders right now. And also I can't go to the next level here. That's not working. But yeah, the idea behind this game... Whoa. Oh yeah, that's right, I have some event for when you touch the exit, so that's why the animation has stopped. But anyway, the idea here was, if you're not aware, the theme for this game jam was start with nothing, which not really the kind of topic that I really would have liked. that was not the theme that I really wanted, but that's the theme that we got. And honestly, I guess the only issue I kind of had with that theme was it was super open-ended. I don't know, for some reason I don't really like prompts that are super open-ended like that, because there's a lot of different ways you can interpret them, and ultimately it feels like it describes every game, actually, or at least most games, because a lot of games you start with absolutely nothing. You start with like an empty inventory or whatever, and then you try to get stronger, and you know, it doesn't. The theme doesn't say anything about how you should end, right? It just literally says you start with nothing. So there's so many different ways you could interpret that. You try and, you know, have like an empty void world if you want to, you know, take it a little bit further and focus more on the theme, I guess. Or I don't know, the way that I interpreted it was, in this game you'd start every level with an empty belly. So you kind of start with nothing, but you have some other stats that you do carry out or carry on with you. So when you eat a piece of food in this game, you'd fill up your belly by some amount. So smaller pieces of food like these blueberries up on this ledge up here would only fill it up by a little bit. That apple might fill it up by a lot, and your belly would have like a maximum of maybe like 10. And so every time you grab a piece of food, your power would actually go up. And so you see there's this snake up there. The snake was supposed to be an enemy, and you could like battle it. And that's where the power would come in. And of course you also have your hit points, which are another resource you have to kind of work around. And the idea was you want to fill up your belly as much as possible and then exit the level, because when you exit the level, day turns to night, and then you sleep, and basically you lose power if you don't go to sleep on a full belly. Essentially, your power would go down by however many belly points. So you eat food to increase your power, and then you try to make sure that you have a full belly so that you don't lose any power, or that you try and fill it up as much as possible. So it becomes sort of a careful balance. And also fighting enemies would also be able to decrease your belly meter. So fighting enemies would make you a bit hungrier, so then you could eat more. So ideally you'd fight a lot of enemies to, you know, make yourself more hungry, and then eat more food so you can increase your power. But you also have to make sure you don't get into too many battles, because then you'll run out of hit points and then you'll die, which is bad. And yeah, just try and min-max things and go to the next level. I thought it'd be kind of interesting as a concept. In some ways, kind of looking back at it now, it's kind of similar to a Drawed RPG. By Drawed, I mean Deadly Rooms of Death, if anyone's familiar with that. Or that game series. Also, Collision. Right, I should talk about Collision and stuff. But I'll get to that in a moment. So, our hamster kind of vibrates when it tries to collide with the wall. I'm actually mostly pleased with the way that this turned out. But, anyway. Yeah, that's the game that I came up with. It's nothing super impressive. Yeah, and here's the actual page on that. Yeah, it's an unfinished game, so it kind of gets swept under the rug, and hopefully things go better next time. And yeah, you can see that there's actually still a bit of time before the play and rate period ends, so that'll be kind of interesting. I might play some games that other contestants made, but yeah, for now, this is kind of the state of things. So I guess I want to talk about some of the problems that I had and my general experience with this, I guess. So this kind of felt I don't know. I felt fairly confident going into this because I had done like a practice game jam beforehand, but I basically spent like part of a big chunk of the first day trying to hash out like an idea for the game, like what did I actually want to create, and that didn't come so easy. That took several hours. At the same time, I was also, well, prior to the actual competition, I was trying to figure out how, or I guess not even figure out how N-Collide works, but I was just trying to figure out what to do about collisions and physics, for example. I knew that the games I wanted to make wouldn't really have realistic physics. I was thinking more like, more retro games, kind of like Super Mario Brothers, where those physics are not like super realistic or anything. Like these days we now have like rigid bodies and stuff in 3D, and like if you stand on a ledge, your character starts to like tilt and then fall off and is affected by gravity and like hits the ground. When they hit the ground, they bounce back up because there's actual what's the word for that? It's like impulse. It's like the force that like pushes you back once you hit something a little too hard with a lot of momentum, and like we have almost realistic physics with things like rigid bodies and whatnot. So I didn't really want that for this game because it wouldn't really make sense. And also for the other games that I've been thinking of working on, those ones, yeah, I also wouldn't use realistic physics for them. So I kind of bounced around between like Specs Physics and Amethyst Ruzix. What was the other one? There was some other. Oh yeah, there's N Physics, of course. There was this crate that was released somewhat recently called Amethyst Physics that allowed you to hook into like different backends for physics engines. But in the end, I ultimately decided to go with N-Collide to handle collisions for this game, and that was a mistake. Definitely don't do that in another competition. Like, picking up a new, well, not new, but like, something that you've never learned before or never used before, a new dependency like that is kind of, it's a big gamble. It really didn't pay off this time, I feel. I could have probably hacked together some kind of crappy collision that didn't work properly, or it wasn't it wasn't so complicated to use, and I probably could have gotten a lot further. But at the same time, at least now I know how to use N-Collide a bit better, so, it's, I think ultimately it was probably worthwhile in the end, but for the sake of saying, let's create a game and get it done in 72 hours, this probably wasn't a good choice. I wouldn't do that again if I were aiming for like I was gonna say a more serious attempt, but I mean, I guess originally my intent for this was to have it be a serious attempt. So yeah, I guess next time probably don't want to be doing stuff like this. What else? N-Algebra. Yeah, N-Algebra was something that kind of comes with N-Collide. It also is in Amethyst as well, come to think of it. But yeah, being forced to use algebra and learn a little bit more about algebra definitely helps me, I think, because that seems to be the math library that a lot of people are using, other than CG Math. And that's the one that Amethyst has chosen to use, so it's good to know how algebra works. Working with isometries instead of, I don't know, whatever else, Euler angles and stuff is kind of tricky, but yeah, I didn't really have to care too much about angles and rotations. I was mostly worried about translation, matrices and stuff, so it wasn't too bad to work with algebra at the end of the day. But yeah, just getting used to the API was kind of tricky. Oh yeah, almost forgot to even mention this. Amethyst has a new tile mapping solution, so yeah, rip all my previous efforts. Which, you know, to be fair, it was kind of difficult, and they have someone who's doing something that's a lot more efficient too. Like they've kind of figured out a pretty efficient solution for tile mapping, and I don't have any like tearing between my tiles anymore. Well, at least I have a lot less of it. It depends on the size of the tile map and stuff, and where the camera is placed. But yeah, I quite like their solution. It's a lot better than what I had. It's a lot fewer issues. Actually, yeah, if you look at the tile map that I have in this game, it's actually completely fine. So there are some issues with transparent sprites, I know. If you have like some translucency around the edge of your sprite due to like anti-aliasing or something like that. I do know that it will show up as black pixels when overlaid on the tile map. I'm not really sure how you'd fix that, but I completely sidestepped that issue by just not having transparent pixels in my sprites. So yeah, I'm pretty okay with that. And one of the good things that I did earlier was this tile map module. This tile map module has served me so well. I didn't have to touch it at all, basically. Okay, I did have to touch this logic here. I did create this create map function, but I did that before the competition. I'd already done that for my other game, Stay Sharp, that I'm still working on. But yeah, this has given me a lot of good information. I now know how to do collisions and stuff. I now know this tile mapping solution actually works really well. I really like it, because I can just drop it into a project and it just does everything I need it to do. That's, I mean, what more could you ask for? It's like these are those batteries that you're looking for in a batteries included kind of setting, right? So I'm very pleased with this. This worked very well for me. I also tried to do multiple levels. That didn't work so well. Yeah, it should have. Oh yeah, one thing I totally should have done was prefabs. More prefabs. I have like one for the animations, and that's about it. But yeah, more prefabs would have helped a ton, because sometimes the build times could take like a full minute to just, you know, finish compiling and then let me run the game, and that wasn't too conducive to, you know, rapid development, so to speak. But some other stuff I did kind of bad here too, like load sprite sheet being specific to level 1. Obviously I want that in every level, so I should put that in like this util module I created. This is kind of like a general purpose place. I was very, I'll admit, I was inspired by Ice Foxen's LD42 postmortem. He posted a blog post about that, or like a wiki post on that, and yeah, it had a lot of good information. It had a big stern warning about nCollide, basically, because I did end up using nCollide based on that decision. I read that post and I was like, okay, I think nCollide is probably the right tool for this job. But after I picked it up, I remember in the post he did say that he spent 5 hours working on that, and those 5 hours were probably the reason why he never got to actually finish his game. For me, I don't know if 5 hours would have been enough to finish all this stuff, but especially because there's still some other issues that I have mentioned before, like the animation stuff. But yeah, I did waste a ton of time just trying to figure out nCollide, so that kind of sucked. But yeah, this util module is also another thing that another idea I got from him for just general things where you want it to be available in multiple modules, but you don't really know where to put it yet. Util is a pretty nice place to dump things. Yeah, for example, stuff like the player prefab data and the animation ID, these are things that could have been dumped in like a separate player module even though typically I wouldn't create like modules for specific entities. The player is a pretty important entity, I'd say, since, well, that's the thing that you control. So I might have created a player module, and I think that probably was the better choice here than to dump some of the stuff here and leave some of the stuff in the components here. Yeah, there's some things that clearly are not components like food type, but they are still here for some reason. That's definitely something that I'm gonna have to work on in terms of like organization. Like, how can I split this out a little more nicely so it doesn't look like this is under components, because it's clearly not a component. I learned a bit about how custom drive works. So here I'm not using the custom drives, but for the for this I am using the custom drives. So I have prefab data here and serialize and deserialization stuff, so that's cool. Yeah, I think for the most part that's about it. What's this? Oh, that's right, I copied this from another project and I completely forgot. I actually don't need this. This is actually unused. Huh. I was having some issues at some point where I couldn't load my tile map, or it wasn't rendering, and I was wondering why that was. I'd already run into many issues with the tile mapping beforehand, because for some reason I could only set the tile map size to powers of 2, and they had to be square, which was even worse. So it was like the width had to be a power of 2, and the height had to be a power of 2, and it had to be the same power of 2. And that didn't work well with this tile mapping thing, until I realized that, hey, that was a bug that they had fixed, and I just had to do a cargo update. And that also actually allowed me to fix the issue with my tile map not rendering. So that was kind of cool. Just had to do a cargo update. Because yeah, I had actually been playing with this new tile map script. Like the moment that Amethyst 0.13 was released, when I saw this, I was just like, well, when I saw this subcrate, I was just like, I have to get on that right away. And it turns out it was still a little bit buggy. So I'm glad that they fixed those things as soon as they did, because yeah, that would have been a huge pain in the butt to deal with during the competition. Is there anything else here that really stands out to me? No, not really. So yeah, that was Ludum Dare 45 in a nutshell, at least my experience with it. So I guess the key takeaways here are, don't get too bogged down trying to figure out new things, and I guess prepare properly beforehand. I did try to prepare a bit, but I mean, I'm working a full-time job, so like I started preparing maybe like 2 weeks in advance, but then, you know, you're working 5 days a week, you only get your weekends off to really like look at stuff, and I've also been doing other things on my weekends too, right? I'm not just focused solely on this stuff, so yeah, I wasn't able to figure out everything that I wanted to in time. I actually created a little list of research spikes that I'm definitely going to have to look into before I do another game jam, or I guess, you know, work on any other game. So yeah, these are definitely things to look into. Oh yeah, type safety. I completely threw that out the window during this competition. Well, there are some places where I did try to, you know, come up with a nice design. I think some of the designs that I came up with were a little bit nicer than even the ones that Icefoxen had in his LD42 entry, but I mean, you know, I had the advantage of knowing what he had done and, you know, trying to improve on that. So yeah, there was some good in here. There was definitely a lot of bad, because as I started to get close to the end of the competition, I started hacking more things together. And yeah, generally gonna have to try and be a little bit better about I guess designing things on the fly and incorporating type safety into those designs as I go. But yeah, that's it. I guess in April there will be LD 46, and if I'm feeling up to it, I might try that again. So yeah, I look forward to the next Ludum Dare, and I'll see you guys whenever I record something else.